ربنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الفاتحة إلى حضرة النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وبعد. Okay, inshallah ta'ala, I'm gonna spend this entire lesson on the second life, inshallah ta'ala, and I think I'm going to commit myself to the extra lesson that we spoke about, inshallah. Very quickly, if we could sort of just, this is something that's going to come later on the slide here, but it's incredibly beautiful and important. So Imam al-Jawzi divided human lifespan into 5, and he sort of divided childhood. So this is all childhood from birth to the end of the 15th year. Now that's when somebody reaches the age of puberty. By age, for example, if the signs of puberty haven't been found in them, then they reach puberty by age, and that would be converted into lunar year. I think it's about 14 years and something. Then you've got youth, okay, we call shabab, okay, and then you've got so this goes up until 35, and then you've got maturity, okay, and then seniority, and then decrepitude, pardon me. So here, these are the sort of 5, and which is similar to what Imam Haddad rahimahullah has done as well. Allahumma salli wa sallim barik. So we spoke about elements of life 1, and then the second life, okay, which is the most important of them all, this middle life, okay. The thing about this middle life is that you know, it's subhanallah, we don't know how long it's going to be, but it's the one where what it's about, right? Because it's what determines, you know, the next life. And you can see this on page 15. You know, it sort of determines people's following the injunctions and protect themselves from the prohibitions. You know, this is the life in which there's accountability. So it's all about this life. So sometimes it could be short, and sometimes it could be nice and long. And so here we have to think about this one the most, and we're here, and this determines where we end up in the akhirah. Ya Allah, Barakah, inshaAllah ta'ala, bless it for us and give us tawfiq to become people with realization, okay, and then also inshallah people who work hard, okay, and achieve inshallah ta'ala great heights, which and pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah we can be in the highest of stations. And so here he starts with this second life has lots of different parts to it, and the first one we said was the room. And you know, this is a time we looked at elements of this, by the way. If you look at page 15 and page 16, because we spoke about Maryam alayhi salam and the mother of Maryam alayhi salam, and her making dua for her offspring and so forth. But I just wanted to summarize this, okay. And we looked at the 4th hadith of Imam Nawawi, which speaks about some of the things that happen whilst a baby, the fetus, is inside the stomach of the mother. And also, if you followed the Prophet series that we ran on the Fridays, you would have remembered that we touched upon this as well there when we spoke about Adam alayhi salam, how Adam alayhi salam, you know, he has the great honor of being created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without the medium of malaika, okay. But here for everybody else, you know, they have the medium of malaika. And so this life of the womb is it's important for parents to play their part here as well, and that's not just conceiving and so forth, but rather the prophetic dua of when two people meet, okay, when the spouses meet, that they, the husband takes the opportunity to fulfill the sunnah of putting his right hand on the forelock of his wife, and both of them together, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua and begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for pious offspring. And a wife should demand this of her husband, that he should make this sunnah dua that Allah can bless their offspring, and if Allah gives them a child and so forth, that to be protected. So this is a great opportunity. Even during this life of the womb, there's a lot of du'as that people can recite. Dhikr becomes incredibly important. Du'a, dhikr, Quran. There are some things, I'm not sure they're, where they come from, but they possibly for sure couldn't be bad. For example, women reading Surah Yusuf at certain elements of the pregnancy, and then other surahs, they said this helps to beautify the baby. Whatever they think about it, it's not, that's a different thing, but their reading Quran is going to help the baby, So, if people should want to give the best to their babies, and spiritually, them playing Quran and listening to Quran themselves, and eating good and healthy, and listening to, engaging in pious, a good ibadat and so forth. So this is, parents' dua, parents' duty of making sure they fulfill the sunnah dua, parents meeting, even they're coming together through halal means, plays a very important role in how the child will be in the future and so forth. Then I was thinking about this, subhanAllah, about how difficult it is, for a baby to enter this world. The difficulty for the mother, and also the difficulty for the child, because we don't really remember, and we also don't seem to see. Physically, we can see it's challenging for the baby. There's a lot of risks involved, but also spiritually, as it highlights, at the bottom of page 70, when it speaks about how shaitan attacks the baby from day one, from the beginning, from the offset, trying to harm the baby, and so forth. We have then this, responsibility of fulfilling certain rights, and from amongst them is calling the adhan, okay, and the iqamah into the ears of the baby, giving sadaqah to ward off harm and so forth, okay. And this is all connected to what we call the huquq, okay, rights of the child, naming the child, giving child a good name. We came across this in the Sil. It was lovely to hear how a Sahabi came, I think it was Sin Shaddad bin Aus, was it Sin Shaddad? I can't remember now, but he's from the tribe of Jurthum, or maybe that was his name, I can't remember. His name was Hazan, or Huzn, sadness, and the Prophet changed his name to, he said, "You're Sahal, your ease." Okay, so giving a good name to the child, a name that has beauty, it has meaning, it has, the best names are going to be the ones that Rasulullah chose for his Sahaba, chose for his family members. We have Hassan, we have Hussain, we have all these beautiful names. Sometimes people are put off because they're old and they're not, it might be old, but you don't always apply the same rule when it comes to, life. For example, sometimes, but generally, you don't always get something that nobody else has got. Normally, actually, that example might work, might not work, because you have people on weddings trying to get suits that nobody else has. So they do try it because they want to stand out. So sometimes people try to do that with names, okay? And it could work if you have a good name, but generally you end up with a name, that nobody's had. If nobody's had, that's not a good sign, is it? We're not smarter than the prophets, we're not smarter than the pious predecessors, and if they didn't have a certain name and you're the first one to come up with it, I don't know, I can't see that being good. I think good and piety and beauty and success lies in following the predecessors. When they do something good, with things like names, they must have exhausted that list. So I don't think that's a great idea, but that's my personal opinion. I think the best names are the ones that the prophets had and the prophets chose for their children. At the end of the day, they are divinely inspired. So people look at, but you've got this element of, so they're the huquq and rights of the children, because they can't really give anything back to us. They're in this passive mode where we're molding them and so forth. So they have rights over us, and we have. So they have those elements, okay, those rights of name and so forth, but they also have this tarbiyyah element. They have a right over us to give them good tarbiyyah. And this tarbiyyah is, multi-dimensional, multifaceted. It has to do with their physical being, okay, that we give them. We try to give them halal. We must give them halal. We try to give them the best that we can possibly give to them from what Allah has given to us. And we try to give them spiritually, spiritually also a tarbiyyah, okay, where physically they're healthy, okay, and people keep looking at physical, and they judge parenting on physical. So you might find a child, fairly healthy outwardly. That sort of determines, oh, you're a good parent, you feed them well, does it? Okay, when spiritually they're not, they have nothing, okay, they're deprived, they only have, I don't know, Bob the Builder and God knows what else in their minds. I think there's dimensional tarbiyyah. So here we have a duty to give them the best that we can provide for them physically, and from food and drink, whatever, the best environment in the house, okay, spiritually. So they need their fair share of dhikr, they need their fair share of knowledge of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those they loved and so forth, and those who followed them. And so this tarbiyyah, again, again, exercise, okay, in terms of the jism, so eating and exercise and knowledge, okay, and spirituality. There's we intend to do a course in the future. Make dua that we can pull this off, inshaAllah ta'ala. Allah chooses it for us, to do with tarbiyyah of awlad. Details will follow, inshaAllah ta'ala, and hopefully we'll pair up with a great local scholar like Shaykh Talal, inshaAllah ta'ala. Make dua that we can do this, and then we'll look at that in more detail. So here, tarbiyyah, okay. Then you've got in this tarbiyyah, one of the great things that you see on page 18 is, this duty of the parents is trying to protect this innate fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in every child, that they're born pure, physically they're pure, spiritually they're pure, they're beautiful, okay. And then it's trying to work in trying to preserve that, this fitrah. Every child is born in Islam, as it comes in the hadith of the Prophet. I mean, what you find is lots of systems attacking that fitrah. We have a real challenge on our hands in trying to preserve that fitrah, protecting that fitrah. So this is touched upon. For sure, the biggest fitrah thing that we have, that Allah has given to us, is going to be La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There's nothing greater than that. You couldn't give anything bigger, more beautiful, more perfect than giving your child the things they need to protect that La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. He touches upon this nurturing the spiritual realms of this life and the next. Here you can see maybe 2 paragraphs on the bottom, or the third one. There's this thing about they must also uproot love for the world and its pleasure, because children, again, when we're giving them tarbiyyah, we have to be very careful that we don't give them too much of the dunya, okay, where they fall into the dunya. And you see lots of examples of this, whether it comes in the form of Xbox and Fortnite, and it could also be, for example, sport. Like for example, yesterday was a very sporty day, and if that's every weekend, then it could be an extreme. You see, then the child starts to sort of fall into. For example, I think cricket's a good example. People who play cricket every Sunday or Saturday, because cricket's such a game where it takes up the entire day. I think it's a real issue. You see, I think that it could be very damaging to the family, because now these people have to maybe take away the Saturday, which is a family day. I think internationally is a family day, right? Saturday, even the Arabs have Saturdays off. So here, if that's your cricket day, then suddenly you are not there on the most important day of the week when your children are off. And say you take your children with you, what do? They just, they spend their entire day falling in love with, a bat and a ball. I don't know. That's not good. That can't be healthy. We're not saying that people shouldn't love sport. We're not saying people shouldn't play sport and watch sport. You know, that's good to some extent, but if that becomes their complete focus and there's nothing to do with the akhirah, like we can easily do a little poll. You can do this in your house, right? You can check in a day, for example, you know, how much mention is there of the akhirah, of people of the akhirah. You see, like in a whole day, how many times in a day do our children actually hear something about akhirah, about the barzakh, okay, about the spiritual, about things to do with spirituality, like you know, mahabbatullah, the love of God, about doing little with, you know, zuhud, an element of it, obviously in a child form, friendly form, so forth. Maybe we can explore that more later on, but you've got this is training them to establish prayer. This is one of the hukuk that they have. Obviously this training takes a long time. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said from the age of 7 start getting your children praying. And you know, some for sure you could start at 8 and 9 and 10 even and get right into it, but some children need much more time to get used to the idea of praying. Praying 5 times a day is not easy, okay? It's a challenge for adults, and for even for children it can be challenging. And so getting them used to waking up in the morning, you know, getting them into the habit of remembering the 5 daily prayers, there has to be an element of it where we help them, okay? And then it's trying to get them used to, like we get them used to trying to walk by themselves, we have to also try to get them used to praying by themselves. But this is a really, really important right that children have over us. The next one that we have is, subhanallah, in terms of the akhirah, good company, suhbah, and this is right at the bottom, okay? Is it at the bottom of that page? But it's either there, it is there. You can see that they should prevent him from associating with bad company, people whose dominant state is heedlessness and frivolousness, whether they be young or old. They must take even greater care with him as he develops the signs of discernment, and not to allow him to stay or to do anything which is not pleasant and praiseworthy, so that he grows up in this manner and these things become a firmly established habit in him. I just read this part because this is really important, because look, even if I finish off on page 19 at the top, which will make it easy for him to practice them when they grow up, for goodness is a habit. Allahu Akbar. And some parents are seen as extreme and crazy that you wouldn't allow your children to stay over even in their cousin's house. But the times we live in, you know, that's not a great idea. You know, I could tell you I've got relatives I never, you know, and we're probably mutual in this, you get it? They'll probably see me as extreme and I see them as extreme, that I couldn't leave my children in their homes for too long, because they have no control. They swear, they curse, they backbite, they watch things that, you know, children are not, they're not ready for it. Do you get it? Even adults are not ready for it. You know, and so here, you know, if they hang around in those environments for long enough, that becomes a norm. We need our children, when they hear us swear, that they're shocked. Yeah, their faces are like, you know, that's a good sign. You know, now you've got a child whose system is in shock, to get it, because they've heard something that's haram, they've seen something haram, and you're able to tell them that's not good, okay? And so we have these challenges, you know, visiting homes and families and so forth. And parks is another example. I remember passing through some parks where I can hear children, young as 5, 6, 7, you know, swearing publicly with the filthiest of swears. Excuse me, somebody taught them that. Somebody has put that into their system, and most likely a parent, a grandparent, you know, an uncle or an aunt, you know, and they can't do that. It's not right for them to do that. And so sometimes we have to make, you know, we make enemies with, but not by choice, but you know, we have, what are we supposed to do? Because we have a duty to protect the fitrah of our children, and these are the toxic environment we end up with. So back to friends, you know, suhbah, family, you know, friends, you know, subhanallah. I think I this is my opinion, right? We've been homeschooling, and we're not the best homeschoolers, but I tell you something, I think it's a great ni'mah to be involved in homeschool, because one of the great things that's come out of homeschooling for us is that we're really good friends with our children. You know, we spend the entire day with them, okay? That's not saying they don't have people of their age that they hang around with, right? But if we don't have enough good ones, then we're not going to just let them go to bad ones, are we? And so I think we as parents should take benefit and advantage of this age of when they're young, and just befriend them and try to keep SubhanAllah, we went to some of you are probably already doing this, but we went to this workshop on the weekend with the Naveed Shahid, and it's been amazing, right? So he was telling us how we can make our time with our children we can educate them and make it fun, and he gave us this game of who am I. So I played this yesterday with my kids from driving from Wickham to Banbury, and I played it again today. We went to Cliveden and we came back, and amazing. Our entire motorway journey is full of fun. I remember being one of their cousins. They found out my daughter ended up being a handbag, which was a really difficult one to get, right? But it was fun, and we're having so here, when you don't have good people to hang around, then you must make sure that you're a good friend and you're a fun friend, and if they've got good friends around them, this is where we need to sort of work together as like if we're attending lessons together, then we need to try to find ways of getting us socially together as well, so that we can all benefit from each other's company. So suhbah is key. I always say to my friends, I say, listen, one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, is good company. Don't underestimate good company. I remember going to Damascus in 2008 after I'd returned, and I was so looking forward to it. I was so excited. It was the return. I missed. It was home, and I had left it. After 8 years being there, and then I went back. So excited. Went into this. I ended up in the same house, and SubhanAllah, I had the most horrible 2 days, and I couldn't make sense of it. I didn't know why. I know the city. I know the place. I know the ulama. Why is this not the same? And then SubhanAllah, I found out afterwards, after I returned, that it was the people missing, the friends I had made, the fellow students and their families, that's what was missing, and that's what made Damascus incredible. And so here, suhbah, ask Allah to give you good company, us good company, and Allah facilitate for our children good company, inshaAllah ta'ala. And my dad actually said this the other day. He said, the day you traveled to Damascus, you had 5 or 6 friends over, and I was saying to you, but you can't have so many good friends. Oh, I said, they're all my mates. And he said, you can't have. And then he said to me, Un kitne reh gaye nahi? Like, how many do you have? I said, not even one. And he said, I told you then. So here, think about that. By the way, if suhbah comes in different forms now. Today we've got technology. Now people are giving friends in the form of gadgets. So I need to check the book I give to my child, the comic I give to my child, the TV program, the device I let them sit. I'll be very careful, very careful. May Allah bless and protect, inshaAllah ta'ala. So here, this is, this child is the time. It's time for establishing good habits and so forth. And the other thing about this time is that they're still ghair mukallaf. This is a word for non-responsible. They're not mukallaf, they're not really, if they miss a prayer, they're not held to account. So here and there, I might let them off. Like, for example, if I'm with my little one, even he's 11, right? I get him to pray fard prayer, and then at home, I get him to pray sunnah prayers. But if I'm at my parents' house, I know he wants to play with his cousins. I make him, he comes, bless him, and prays his fard, and I tell him, go. Like, I'm telling him he can go, and he can miss his sunnahs, and he gets so happy. You couldn't measure his smile. Why? Because I'm letting him go and play with his cousins, and I'm grateful that he comes and leaves his cricket and prays. So I don't know, from my learning, that's a good balance. I found that to be really helpful, and because he's still young, he's still growing, then if I can get him to fall into that habit, and I have to appreciate the fact that he's leaving his friends to come and pray. I think that balance is beautiful. So inshallah, even though my dad was probably giving me the looks, I just made sure I made no eye contact with my dad, right? So I just went, Dad, you go. And my dad, he didn't say nothing anyway. But so this is the ghair mukallaf. I have to go easy. I try and get them to pray salah and fasting and so forth. So Allah bless in that. And then when they reach the age of puberty, obviously, again, you see taqwa angels recording, that's mentioned right on page 20 at the bottom of page 19 and 20. About, see, trying to, they're ghair mukallaf, they're not responsible, but I'm trying to raise them so they become aware of angels. They're aware of kiram and katib. You might be alone in your room, but you're not alone, right? Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching ultimately. Ultimately, He's wherever you are, you are under the watchful eye of God. And the other thing is, you have these angels. When they're praying salah, and I remind them, it's salam, so give me salams to your angels. These are noble angels. Okay, that idea grows strongly in their heart. They know they're never alone. Okay, and so here it's important to raise them understanding, and taking responsibility of their actions, because they know dad doesn't need to watch, and mum necessarily, we might not know. You're not dealing with us. You get it? You're dealing with Allah. So if they don't know who Allah is, and they have never fallen in love with Allah, and they haven't done the dhikr of Allah, they haven't visited the house of Allah, they haven't visited the house or the resting place of the Prophet of Allah, they don't have a connection with the book of Allah, they've never met people of Allah, and then how are they supposed to know Allah? So here we have a duty to try to connect everything to God. When we go out in our parks, connect them, get them thinking. You get it? Who made this? Who made that? Look how beautiful that is. Even science, okay, geography. Everywhere we look, we have signs that point us towards the great, the Lord of ours, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here, as they draw nearer to that age, for sure, at some point from childhood up to there, they've been through some madrasa, they've got some training of what deen is and so forth. But when they get closer to this age of puberty, they need to be reminded again. And so we have to then teach them the fard ain again. You see, this fard ain knowledge of what salah, the fara'id and wajibat, that needs to be repeated. Why? Because it's possible that they may have forgotten that knowledge, and that's key. That is because, remember, I'm raising a child that's going to be obedient to Allah, fulfill the commands of Allah, but they can't do that if they don't know what those commands are and what Allah demands of them and so forth. So here, inshaAllah ta'ala, this is this is where we're trying to take them towards in their childhood. And then you've got Allah, and then it ends on page 20 before this slide, still in the last slide, it talks about knowledge. Okay, that when the child reaches puberty, if I go back, his father or guardian should remind him anew of the articles of faith and the obligations, prohibition, even if he has already been taught these things. Okay, and obviously and you got a very important note here. Okay, that long paragraph. Okay, if you go towards the middle, he says, look, even though at puberty he has become accountable for himself, he still needs encouragement, reminding and explanations about what he has become accountable for, about religious obligations such as prayers and fasting, and keeping away from prohibited things such as adultery, homosexuality, alcohol drinking, and wrongful consuming other people's money, whether by usury, coercion, deceit, or any other method. Very, very important. If my kids are growing up and they're seeing these type of things and they don't know what they are, you get it? They start to have their own interpretation, or somebody else might tell them. I don't want anybody else to tell my child, the one who Allah has given to me, what that haram is, that haram. I can do that myself. And me knowing my child, I feel, and everybody should be in this position that they're the best people to teach them. If I'm not sure how to teach them, we've got each other to turn to, right? We can ask each other, how should I do this? How have you done this? Okay. And so here, we should take this initiative and teach our children directly, indirectly, age-appropriate education, okay? Telling them that's not allowed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like that, okay? And that's not allowed. Why isn't that allowed? Because this is the reason, beta, okay? And so here we should teach them. We have a real duty. This is a really, really important paragraph on page 20, okay? That you should look at, inshallah ta'ala. Some of you, the people listening, are very young. This is brilliant for you, because a lot of us would, on this, the older lot, right, who are in their maturity age or even further, would tell you we didn't really get this type of training, nor did we ever hear these type of things, okay, these beautiful wisdoms about how to raise our children. So inshaAllah, you have no excuse, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, when Allah grants you these pious spouses and pious children, inshaAllah ta'ala, you have a head start. You should be ahead of other people, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, with the permission of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now you got youth. So from in this second life, we have the life in the womb, and then we spoke about youth, okay, and now a childhood and youth. Now we're going to, we spoke about childhood, okay, now we're going to look at youth. And youth is really, really interesting, right? So he says, after the onset of puberty, okay, as soon as they reach the age of puberty, so we're going to go from 15 onwards now, from 15 up to 35. This is the first stage. The first stage of youth begins, okay, a stage where energy is abundant. This is called nishat, okay. They're very energetic, okay, and they grow in this energy, and their energy can be different depending on what vibe they're on, right, and where they've been hanging out. Some, subhanallah, are physically very strong. Some are mentally very challenging. Others, subhanallah, they could easily get into promiscuous type of relationships, and they're really high on that level, right? Boys and girls and these type of things, and it's trying to find what they have, okay. And so nishat is, the energy level, and on this, right, energy. This is why it's a good age to get kids into some type of sport. Learn some type of art. You gotta get them involved in, whether it's gonna be, swimming. Okay, it could be badminton. It could be some type of sports club. Okay, it could be martial arts. Okay, it's theirs to decide what they're like. I couldn't really dictate that on my child. They differ. They differ. Some like this and others like that. But whatever it is, try to invest that energy into something that's going to keep them busy and make them grow. So here, and it's also extremely hazardous, as he puts on page 21 in the first paragraph. Look what it says. He goes, however, it is also a hazardous stage of which one should be vary. Here on this, you got summer holidays coming out. Summer holidays, if they're not, if the energy is not channeled, my experience is this, right, that people learned all the bad habits through through the holidays. They've got nothing to do. They're bored out of their brains. Okay, we used to go to the park. We were lucky and fortunate to be able to just exhaust ourselves and come back home knackered, right, having played whatever it was the entire day, which was great. But there's a lot of people who didn't play in the park, and they played with friends but away from the park, okay. And they could have easily, at this age, depending on what age they are and who they're hanging around with, right, go into cars, friends who are driving, for example, okay, and drive around with them, or get into even drugs. We see that drugs, using their bicycles to get drop off and so forth. So here, there's a lot here. Now, I don't know, I'm not up to date with what youth are doing, but the same things are going to be happening, but just more developed. So we just need to be very careful. Okay, so a very, very dangerous age, and this is again connected. So if I've given them a good upbringing, and inshaAllah ta'ala, they're young, who are, who you're going to see the next point, right? The merit of youth spent in obedience. So you have to raise them so they go into that, right? Okay, and so if I've at a young age been able to get them into loving the Quran, loving their prayer mat, loving Salah, loving the Deen, I find with my children, where possible, I will exhaust all resources to make sure they go to Umrah. Very difficult to do that, but I know the value of it, because when they come back, and they've been twice, and it wasn't easy to take them, but the value that they get from that is incredible, because they remember it. They remember the Kaaba Sharif. They remember Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they've got that in their memory. Get it? It's long-term memory and it's permanent, inshaAllah ta'ala. And then they love going, when we go out, sometimes visiting scholars, they love certain scholars, but they love Mawlid. They love a gathering where there's, they love to be, they don't like attending gatherings. If I say, come, let's attend the gathering, no. But if I say, come with me, you can give out this, or you can do the teas, or you can set up the desk, then they're happy to go. Then they're happy to get involved, okay? And so here, like for example, we went the other day, and I said, come. I said, come, you can set up the teas, okay? Oh, yeah, Allah, Bismillah, you're in charge of the teas. And they were fighting over it. But I don't know, other people's children might be different. But if we can get them, and I don't know how they're going to turn out, make dua, Allah, make everybody's children pious, right? But if we can, hopefully that khidmah is in their blood, okay? If I could put that in, then inshallah, as they grow older, they become a volunteer for the masjid or for an organization, and they take that full time, that they will set up the class because they know they get the reward for the students learning. But here, I don't know, the ideas are, there's lots of ideas. So here, I need to protect them, right? So in order to protect them, I need to get them involved in something. And this is why, if you look at this entire page is quite scary. So you can see the merit of youth spent obedience. You tell a young person, especially, you tell them this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, where he said, "Look, your Lord wonders at a young man who shows no passions." They're not into that stuff. They're into study. They're into dhikr of Allah. They're into prayer. You have some kids, mashallah, love adhan. Some children love to be at the masjid and praying jama'ah, okay, and so forth. If we have a child who's into that, that's a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, for sure, one of the greatest hadith that we have, that, from amongst the 7 who are under the shade of Allah, on the day there's no shade but His shade, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is going to be the one who spends their youth, okay, in the obedience of Allah. So young people, the youth is, this is the youth, right, from 15 to 35. This is about devoting your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you can do that, the prize is incredible. Okay, the prize is incredible. And so then he speaks about the importance of youth, and this is, and he's highlighting this, right, because he's giving us 2 hadith there. Then he gives a third one, okay, where he says, "Oh, young man who has abandoned his passion for my sake, you are to me as are some of my angels," okay. And then you can see he shows the importance of youth, because he cites these hadith, right, where he says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, seize the opportunity to make us of 5 things before 5, okay. And so I put them there for you. All right, your youth before you grow old, and health before you fall sick, and free time, which is leisure, before you become busy. I tell you what, it's easy to become busy. I look back at Damascus, and there's lots of opportunities missed. Before marriage, there's a lot of opportunities. Before the kids arrived, okay, before work put lots of projects on me, you think back, you think, man, I missed out. This is why anybody young needs to think about that. You should come and ask people more soon and say, how can I take benefit? This is how old I am. This is what I'm doing. What can I change? What can I add? Speak to people you trust. And this is where, having days where we can bring in people of different, backgrounds. What are these days called again? We were discussing this recently. Where we can have them, people of different skill sets coming in, and young people talking to them, planning their future and so forth. Inshallah, they can take benefit from. So here, the point is that the Prophet mentioned youth before old age. And so if you're under whatever age you happen to be, everybody on here is nobody's really old, are they? So here, I've got to take benefits. If I ever hit 40, I need to be super careful. 40 plus 40, as we're going to speak about this in a bit. And health doesn't take a lot. Look, loads of people around us, wallahi, overnight they're sick. And they're sick, and some have passed on. This is why, again, he has a chapter we might get to, inshallah, about sickness. You better not mess about when you're sick. When you're sick, this is what you do, okay, for a reason. And free time, you got a day off. Either you spend it with family or something, or you do something constructive. Like yesterday's day, sports was a waste. What do you remember? Even England winning, apparently they might, it was a wrong one run wrongly, awarded to them. I don't know, but like what remains of the entire day? Wallahi, nothing. And I know I'm guilty as well. Like even the tennis and the cricket, like what remains out of the entire day? What remains? As for when I was listening to the Khatam of Shaykh Muhammad Yaqubi, I learned loads. I remember loads from that. So much of that I benefited from. As for, and this is where we have to be careful that, especially if you're into sports, you're into watching things, that you can really, really, really lose a lot of time. So we ask Allah to save us and put barakah in what He's given to us. So these are free time and wealth. Wealth is whatever you have from rizq. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm not wealthy. Whatever you have, you get it. Whatever you possess, okay. You're going to be asked about this, and take benefit before you lose what you have, okay. And life before death. And so then he has I put a different hadith here because you've got this one here, but because I was trying to count 5 and I couldn't, because in the second one he says, and he said upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the feet of a servant will not move away from where he stands on the day of Razi until he's asked about 5 things: his life and how he expended it, that's 1; his youth, and then what he exhausted to, his wealth, and where he obtained it from, and what he spent. This is 4. And so you've got hadith that mention 4, and you've got hadith that mention 5. Okay, so you can see this is another one from Imam Tirmidhi, which is slightly different in its wording. Okay, which is how his life, how he spent it, his body, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how he used his body, fima ablahu, and in his knowledge and how he applied it. You see, and then his wealth, from where he earned it and where he and how he spent it. So these are the 4, okay, that have been mentioned. They're really important. Very important. I need to ask myself all the time, where's my life going? You get it? I was 20, now I'm 30. My God, I was 30, now I'm 40. I'm heading towards 50. It goes quick, man. Very quick. And the body as well. You get a certain age, back aches, knee aches, and pains and aches, and you think, Ya Allah, see, they're a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I never had these pains and suddenly I'm getting them, you better be quick, mate, because they're just going to get worse. And also knowledge. How long am I going to learn? When am I going to apply? Okay. And you're going to see an example coming up from Imam Malik about this. Okay. And also my money. How much of this am I going to store? This is a good point. You hear it again and again. Certain people have, and make dua, we can all be like this, inshaAllah ta'ala, where some people have a percentage of their wealth going to sadaqah every month, going out. So our money, an element of it should be for sure for yourself, and for your family, and then an element for Allah. It could be I give £100 to my mum and dad every month into their account, whether they know or they don't know, but that's khidmah, fi sabilillah. And it could be £10 here and £50 there, but from my entire wealth I give away, from my wage, and at the end of the month I give away £200-300, whatever, tawfiq from Allah. But this is the time to do it. If we don't do it now, when we go to do this? So that's what we take away from so page 21's very powerful, okay, when it comes to and you might want to write at the top, the importance of youth, the value of youth, the merit of youth, okay, the responsibility, okay, that lies upon us to try to use that time when we have the greatest energy for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now we have the Allahumma salli wa sallim barik alayhi, page 20, right at the bottom. We go to a new life, which is maturity, okay, and this is going to be from 35, okay, up until I think it was 60, okay, or around 60. So here he says a young man then moves on to the age of maturity, which sees the peak of one's lifetime and the attainment of one's full power, okay, physically and also spiritually, right? So and this next paragraph is what I put earlier on, where he divides the human lifespan into 5 periods, okay, and so you can look at that. So at the bottom it says, at the peak of one's faculties and maturity, one may expect to attain wisdom. Okay, we have to ask Allah for this wisdom, right? This is the age of maturity, the age of wisdom, okay, and we know, as we can see there, that a lot. وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. whoever's been given wisdom has been given something, a lot of good. So here one should ask, Ya Allah, make me wise. Ya Allah, give me wisdom. Ya Allah, give me hikmah. Ya Allah, give me tawfiq. And so here we're well aware that the Prophet received revelation at the age of 40, and that's one of the conversations that people have, the ulama have, about why 40, because 40 has been referred to in the Quran, as we're going to see on the next page. You can see at the bottom of this ayah here, okay, which is Surah Yusuf, and speaking of Surah Prophet Yusuf, is that I've put it, وَهُمْ يَسْتَرِخُونَ فِيهَا رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي كُنَّا نَعْمَلْ أَوَلَمْ. This is actually on the next page, but if you read this with me at the bottom, and when he attained his prime, okay, balagha ashuddahu, okay, in Surah Yusuf, so at the bottom of page 22, and they said, some of this, I looked at Jalalain and Baydawi, these are good, very good tafsir books, and they said that he was the age of 30 years, pardon me, this balagha ashuddahu, okay, is that clear? And so here, you know, that's been mentioned. Even though I wrote 30 in my book, something's telling me I read 35, so I should double check that. But it wasn't 40 for sure, okay? But you see this ayah here, okay, which is on the, what is it? وَهُمْ يَسْتَرِخُونَ فِي رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي كُنَّا نَعْمَلْ أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ مَا يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرَ وَجَاءَكُمُ النَّذِيرُ فَذُوقُوا فَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ نَصِيرٍ. This ayah, okay, is referred to towards the middle of the page. Why? Because on this page at the top, he speaks about how he cites another ayah until when, on the second line, when he attained full strength and reached 40. So the Quran speaks about 40, okay? And even if the Mufassirun said on page 22 at the bottom about Yusuf al-Islam that he wasn't 40, but that age of 30, 35, 40, okay, people become the strongest, you know, when it comes to maturity. This has been alluded to, okay? And Allah choosing Rasul to receive revelation at that age. But now look, this is where it gets scary, right? Because, you know, this ayah here, when you look at the in the middle of this page, okay, and just read a bit of this, because it almost becomes clear at this age whether any particular person is ultimately intended for good or evil. Ya Latif. Virtue or corruption, for there are certain signs which appear and predominate to the extent that if, as some have said, a man has attained the age of 40 and the goodness in him has not become dominant over his evil, the devil rubs his face and cries, a face that will never succeed. This is why if you haven't hit 40, right, you need to try to target and try to become the most beautiful, most perfect person by the age of 40. Okay, exactly. That's the target. That by the time I get to 40, I get rid of lying and sarcasm, and I replace it with honesty and truthfulness and good akhlaq and so on. So this is not saying, I could chill out until I'm 40. It's not saying that at all. It's saying that you've got a chance to become a great person, okay, before you reach the age of 40. And so here, they said this ayah here, okay, is that clear? Is alluding to, it should be here. Where is this gone? So this ayah, in summary, this ayah here, some scholars said either the age of 40 or 60, right? Is that clear? This is what this is talking about. And predominantly says age 60, that people have no excuse left. They have no excuses left with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, if we grant you a life long enough for him who reflect therein. If you live 40 years, and thank God some said 60, and you haven't reflected and you haven't changed and you haven't taken benefit, what's left? You've got no excuse left, because Allah gave you long enough life to be able to have done something good. Okay, and so, you know what, it's scary when you look around and certain family members haven't moved yet. I don't know what they're waiting for, but wallahi, it's scary. We keep making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he inspires them and pushes them and changes them, inshaAllah ta'ala. Now, Imam Sha'rani, this is really lovely, because we're talking about 40, right? So it's trying to look at how the previous ulama, our Salaf al-Salih, what happened to them when they reached the age of 40. So because our oaths were taken that when we reach 40 years of age, we would fold up our sleeping mat, except when overpowered by sleep, and remain constantly aware with each breath that we are traveling to the hereafter, so that no rest remains to us in this world or in the world. We must see each atom of our life past 40 as equal to 100 years prior to that. Ya Allah, if there must be no repose for us, no competition over position, no joy over anything worldly. All this because life is narrowed after 40. The heedlessness, distractions, and playing are inappropriate for him who nears the battleground of death. We can use battleground of death because, as you can see in the next paragraph, the Prophet ﷺ, not there, it's going to come later on, where the Prophet refers to, it's on page 27, right, where there's a reference to the battlegrounds of, is it there? No, it might be further. I can see it's going to be, there's a reference to a hadith, right, where it's seen as the battleground of, but we'll come to it. I'll point it out to you. So here, Ya Latif, get it. Look what Imam Malik said. He said, we used to say, we used to know people who studied until they were 40, after which they would so occupy themselves with passion that they knew that they had no free time left to turn to anything worldly. They retired. They started to focus on the akhirah. Imam Shafi, and the next quote, he took a staff at the age of 40 to remind him that now it's downhill, mate. You see, and look what Imam Wahab and Munabbih said, and just at the bottom, just above seniority. Wahab ibn Munabbih, may Allah show his rahmah upon him, said, I have read somewhere that each morning a herald announces, a messenger announces from the fourth heaven, O people of 40, you are a crop whose harvest is nigh. O people of 50, what have you sent ahead of you, and what have you kept back? O people of 60, you have no excuse. Would that creatures had never been created. When created, they know why they are created. The hour has come to, so be aware. So here, this is pointing towards after 60, there's no excuses left. You gotta, you say Alhamdulillah that you are aware, and you're praying, and you're trying, your focus, your direction is going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say Alhamdulillah. You gotta, if it's before 60, you say Alhamdulillah. This is bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If us, whoever is involved in this, and I mean Allah accept it, get it, inshaAllah ta'ala, that Allah's put us in this line at an early age. So now you've got, okay, we've got 6 minutes left. If we look at the second life, I guess seniority, this is the fourth element of it, isn't it? We spoke about the womb, we spoke about childhood, we spoke about youth, okay, we spoke about maturity. So this is going to be fifth now, okay? So when you hit 60, Allah says in the Quran, هو الذي خلقكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم يخرجكم طفلا ثم لتبلغوا أشدكم ثم لتكونوا شيوخا ومنكم من يتوفى من قبل ولتبلغوا أجلا مسمى ولعلكم تعقلون. So he mentions this ayah here. It is who created you from dust, okay, and then from a drop of seed, then from a clot, then brings you forth as a child, okay, then you attain full strength, okay, ashuddakum, okay, this is your 40, and afterwards you become old men after 60. There's some among you die before, some die before, old men, and then reach an appointed term, and then others keep going until they reach their death, okay. Subhanallah here, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so that you may apply understanding, okay. And so here, all of this hikmah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding. When you look around at people, you look at young people, think, yeah, but mashallah, you look at somebody else, think, ya Allah, I've got a chance, right? And so here, all of this makes you think. Now, okay, Allah, he says this is the age where weakness starts and strength recedes. For sure it does, post 60, okay. So here, the time of great worship and work and change and whatever you want to achieve, it's all done really, okay. And that's not saying that you couldn't still do it, because we've got great hope, right? When we look at Tafsirul Jalalain, okay, Jalaluddin Mahalli started at the age of 70. They said he was sitting there looking, and he could see water dropping from a leaf into some type of container, and he just kept watching it until it filled up. Then he realized, if I learnt knowledge like this and I kept learning something, again, my pot will be full too. So he started to learn at the age of 70, and he completed the tafsir. So here, there is still hope, but normally, okay, people are sort of past their best. And then you've got this, the mean age of the nation. There's a hadith that's going to come later on, and it's here as well. The reaping of my nation is between 60 and 70. So normally people of this ummah will die between 60 and 70. And then we've got, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he passed away at the age of 63. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq at the age of 63. Sayyidina Umar at the age of 63. Sayyidina Ali at the age of 63. And Sayyidina Uthman lived past 80. And so here, and then he speaks about how, this is the last paragraph, right? The lifespans of the Muslim nation are among the shortest there have been. And so this is Allah's given us something called Laylatul Qadr, right? And so because we have shorter lifespans, okay, we've got a lot of great nights in our year. We've also got lots of actions that are multiplied in reward much greater than other nations had. So here, this is how the balance is. Allahumma salli wa barik alayhi. And then he starts to speak about Laylatul Mi'raj, which you can go back to, right? But he also mentions how it's at this age that you find a lot of people that turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like in the age of seniority, people's dominant state is to revert to God. We find there's a lot amongst our elders. They reach the age of 50, 60, and then they start to change, okay, which is good. Alhamdulillah, they're coming, right? Okay. And so here, and then he touches upon how this age of dignity and reverence and the total avoidance of jest and levity. Any person of this age not conform to this pattern will be thought of as ugly. And this is why anybody who reaches this age and they haven't changed, okay, this is disgusting. People haven't started to pray at the age of 60. They haven't made hajj, okay, they're not leaving haram, they're not leaving lying and so forth. And this is a very dangerous position to be in. And then he speaks about white hair and how white hair usually appears at this time. And for some people much younger, I was saying to somebody, he's not even 25. Loads of white hair. So it can come younger as well. And so here, for someone whose hair turns grey while a Muslim, it becomes a light from, as it comes in the hadith of the Prophet. So it's sort of saying, don't dye your hair if you don't need to. It's good for you, right? Don't pluck your white hairs, okay? If you have white hair, inshaAllah, it's a nur for you, Yawm al-Qiyamah. So it's sort of giving people encouragement to leave their hair white, okay? You can dye it if you want to, by the way, but it's saying it's better to leave it white, okay? It sort of depends on individuals and their family life and so forth, okay? And there's a hikmah in why people go white. White is supposed to remind us, okay, as it comes on the bottom line of this page, of the nearness of one's time. White hair is like saying, Yallah, your youth is gone, it's going, now you're getting old. This is good, okay? This is good because for those who understand, this is good because then your focus could be akhirah. Otherwise, if I dye it black, I forget I'm young. I really believe I'm young. Jawani aayegi wapas again. Really, that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be akhirah. Because if I do that, then my focus becomes dunya. If I let it go, my focus becomes the akhirah. And this is why, look what Khatib, Imam al-Khatib said. This is brilliant, right? Okay. And there's another one that's brilliant, actually. White hair is a hole in life which cannot be plugged, and whose worsening was not repaired by time. It is a light that rises, the breath of life sets, a mover of people to the place of rotten bones. Do not, may God have mercy on you, burn the light of your white hair with the fire of your sins. And you've got this reference to where the Prophet ﷺ, he started to weep, right? Okay, which is just slightly down from there. Okay, Allahu Akbar. This is scary. We should have used this to tell our elder people, listen, come on, time is up for you. He said, look, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, God, the Exalted said, by my eminence and majesty and the need of my creatures for me, I would be too ashamed to torment my men servants and women servants whose hair has turned white in Islam. Then he wept. So they asked him, what is it that makes you weep, O Messenger of God? And replied, I weep because of those before whom God is ashamed and who do not feel ashamed before God. So here, we've been told to have respect for people with white hair. And right at the bottom, there's a note about dyeing your hair, right? If you do dye your hair, you're allowed to go off black, okay, whether it's saffron or brown or anything else, okay? But you shouldn't dye it black unless it's for jihad, or to put fear and apprehension into people, you know, when you're in jihad and so forth. And there is room for people to dye their hair black for the sake of their spouses. And then I thought I'm going to get through the next two chapters, okay? You know what? Let me keep going, okay? Because I've got a few minutes. I'm going to use a few extra minutes, inshallah. If you miss this and you have to go, you can always come back to this. So now this is the last life, right? Okay. So in this this life, Allah says, Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min da'f, thumma ja'ala min ba'di da'fin quwwah, ثم جعل من بعد قوة ضعفا وشيبة يخلق ما يشاء وهو العليم القدير. This ayah, look at the power of Allah. Allah is He who shaped you out of weakness as a baby, then appointed after weakness strength, then after strength become Buddha again, okay, body weakness and grey hair. He created what He will. He is the know the mighty. You see, so here we see this, right? Because we see, and you see another ayah in reference to dementia, because He's the one. Look, He says, and among you there is He who is brought back to the worst time of life, so that after knowledge He know nothing. This Surah 22 verse 5. We see this. This is the might and power of Allah. You see, intelligent people, wallahi, they don't know nothing. They don't remember anything they're talking about. You think, Ya Latif, it's embarrassing, sometimes it's difficult. This is embarrassing, difficult, but look at that, the power of Allah. It's Allahu Akbar, who can make that happen. So here, okay, you know, the Prophet used to make dua. He used to make dua, Ya Allah, Allahumma inni. So this is referred to as the worst age, right? Past 60 or 70 and 80, right? Okay, here, why? Because everybody becomes weak, and our elders, they make dua, Ya Allah, take me, muhtaj na karo, don't make me rely on anybody, take me before it's too late. So the Prophet used to make dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ard al-umri, to these words here, and he could put a reference there, right? Okay, so he says, I ask you protection from being brought back to the worst time of life, okay, the evil of senility. So here, a'udhu billah. So this is very scary. This is why, and then he touches upon the rahmah of Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever lives over 70 and then over 80, okay, they have the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what we should respect those people even more so. This is the one I got excited about, but I thought it's actually come here, not earlier, even though the previous quote was really good. Look at this, right? Okay, on page 29, Ma'an ibn Zayd once entered upon a Ma'mun who asked him, okay, and this is highlighting, you know, what old age is like. May Allah protect us. Into what state has old age led you? He replied, to stumbling on a lump of dung, be wounded by a hair. He said, how are you with food, drink and sleep? He said, when I am hungry, but when I eat, I am not content. I become drowsy in company, sleepless when I go to my bed. How are you with women? The ugly among them I have no wish for, and the pretty among them have no wish for me. Al-Ma'mun finally said, the likes of you should not be on duty. So he gave him a retirement. Okay, he goes, let me have twice as much provision as stay at home. Okay, let people ride to him and let him have to ride to no one. But look how he respected the elderly. SubhanAllah, isn't that beautiful? Okay, realizing, look, they're too old to work now and so forth. This is where we have to be at the service of our elders, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, and then the Prophet said, the best among you are those whose lives are long and whose works are good. So that's why we should ask Allah to put barakah in our lives, give us long life, but lives in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why we should not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, to end our lives. We should never make that dua, and the Prophet forbade that. We should ask Allah, Allah, keep me alive as long as living is good for me, okay, and take my life if it's bad for me. This is the type of dua. Leave the choices to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he highlights the barakah right at the bottom. Barakah, barakah, barakah. This is why you can see he gives the example of Imam Shafi, okay, at the top of page 30, died at 54. Imam Ghazali, proof of Islam, died at 55. Imam Ba'alawi, Drus al-Ba'alawi, died at 54. Imam Nawawi, about 46. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, okay, look, before reaching 40, where those people had barakah in their lives. Okay, and this is why we have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabb, give us barakah, put barakah in our lives and so forth, okay? And so this is the greatest thing that we can have. And then he ends with speaking about, actually he puts a note about sudden death, but the Prophet mentioned in the hadith that's attributed to him about how one of the signs of the end of time is people will die a sudden death, maut faja'ah, okay? And so now you can't belittle this last conversation of his, right? Okay, because what he does here, this I'm going to leave the next one, right? But I'm going to end with this. This page 30 at the bottom is really important to get it, because he then starts to speak about how do I then shift my focus from focusing on dunya and shift it to focusing on the akhirah. What I'll ask you to do is, if you can kindly read from page 30, okay? Those of you who can, and if you don't, then I will summarize anyway, okay, up to the end of the next life, which will take us up to page 51. It's 20 pages. You should take advantage. It's a small book you should be reading as we go along. We'll carry on from page 30. Okay, I'll try to summarize what we have in the next few pages. It's quite easy to summarize this, okay, because now he's trying to say, how do I change my shift? How do I focus on the akhirah? Bi'idhnillah ta'ala, we'll carry on from there. Allah bless you. Jazakumullah khairan. I hope you benefited. Allah accept it from us. Make it for us, not against us. Jazakumullah khair. Fi amanillah. والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم. الفاتحة إلى حضرة النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام.
ربنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا